It didn't sound like a confession when he said it. That's what made it so dangerous. There was no pause, no dramatic buildup, no warning, just a sentence that slipped out as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. We've always been close, intimate even. And then the quiet part that shattered everything, that never really changed. Not even after Harry. Those words didn't come from a tabloid fishing for clicks. They didn't come from some anonymous source hiding behind a burner account. They came directly from Markus Anderson himself, and once those words were out, there was no putting them back. Because Markus wasn't just a friend. He wasn't some forgotten figure from Meghan's past. He was the constant, the shadow that never left the frame. The man people whispered about but never fully understood. For years, insiders had quietly referred to him as Meghan Markle's other half. Not romantically, at least not in a way that could be easily defined, but intimately, deeply, unshakably. So when Markus admitted that closeness didn't end with marriage, it sent shockwaves through every carefully constructed narrative surrounding Meghan, Harry, and the fairy tale the world had been sold. To understand why that single sentence caused so much damage, you have to understand who Markus Anderson really was long before palace walls, royal protocols, and global headlines entered the picture. Before he became a name that made advisors nervous, Markus was just a man from Ontario with no inherited power, no family fortune, and no safety net. What he had instead was something far more dangerous, an instinct for people. He could read a room within seconds. He knew who mattered, who wanted to matter, and who was desperate to be seen. And rather than demanding power, he offered access. That gift changed everything. Soho House wasn't just a club, it was a world built on secrecy, influence, and silent hierarchies. Outsiders saw velvet ropes and stylish dinners. Insiders knew it was a gatekeeping machine, and Markus didn't just work there, he controlled it. He decided who belonged and who didn't, who got noticed and who stayed invisible. Power didn't intimidate him. He made powerful people feel understood, and he made ambitious people feel hopeful. Quietly, almost invisibly, Markus became the man behind the curtain. That's where Meghan Markle entered his world. Back then, she wasn't a duchess. She wasn't global news. She was an actress filming Suits in Toronto, smart enough to know that talent alone wouldn't get her where she wanted to go. Markus saw that immediately. Where others saw potential, he saw precision. He understood ambition because he lived it. He understood timing because he mastered it. And he understood exactly how far someone like Meghan could go with the right positioning. Their connection didn't begin as romance. It was subtler than that, more powerful. Markus wasn't just opening doors, he was teaching her which ones were worth walking through. And Meghan wasn't just listening, she was absorbing everything. Long before royal titles, there was a private world that existed just for them. Madrid, Istanbul, London, always stylish, always close, always just outside full public view. People who saw them together noticed something unusual. They didn't need words, they communicated with glances, they moved in sync, they shared a private language no one else could hear. When Meghan doubted herself, Markus steadied her. When she needed opportunity, he knew who to call. When she wanted more, he showed her how to reach for it. Over time, their bond deepened into something that defied labels. He wasn't just a mentor, he wasn't just a friend, he became her anchor. He curated her life the way others curated brands, designers, producers, influential names, exclusive circles most people never even glimpsed. And Meghan trusted him completely because he never failed her. This wasn't temporary, it wasn't casual, it was a foundation, one laid long before a prince ever appeared. By the time Meghan's name began circulating in elite circles, nothing in her life was accidental anymore. Every dinner, every trip, every invitation served a purpose. Madrid wasn't just travel, London wasn't just work, Istanbul wasn't just adventure. Each place came with conversations, carefully chosen company, and strategic positioning. To Meghan, it felt natural. To outsiders, it looked effortless. But behind the scenes, Markus was managing momentum. He knew proximity created opportunity. He knew silence could be as powerful as presence. And he knew exactly when to push and when to wait. Then came 2016. Meghan stayed at Soho Farmhouse in the English countryside. The booking wasn't random. Markus arranged it, he controlled the guest list, he controlled the environment, and that weekend she was introduced to Prince Harry. Dinner, drinks, conversation, nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical, but something shifted. Harry was drawn to her warmth. Meghan was drawn to his restlessness. When the date ended, she did something instinctive. She called Markus. She laughed. She sounded nervous, excited, standing on the edge of something new. He's different, she told him. Markus didn't sound surprised. Instead, he gave her one quiet piece of advice that would shape everything that followed. Then make sure he sees the version of you the world doesn't. From that moment on, Meghan wasn't just falling in love. She was stepping into a role. And Markus wasn't stepping away. He was watching closely. As Meghan and Harry grew closer, Markus remained present. At first, it felt harmless. Markus and Harry got along. They laughed together, shared meals, talked like men who believed they were on the same side. To Harry, Markus was just an old friend. But something felt different. Meghan changed around him. She relaxed. She laughed freely. She seemed lighter. And for a man already carrying deep insecurities, that difference mattered. The lines blurred. Markus was there for secret trips, celebrations, moments meant for two. He wasn't intrusive. He was simply always included. Harry saw Meghan as his escape from royal pressure. Markus saw her as the woman he had helped shape long before the palace touched her. Neither said it out loud, but the triangle existed. And once it formed, it never truly disappeared. At the wedding in 2018, the world saw a fairy tale. What they didn't notice was who remained close. Markus wasn't hidden, he wasn't pushed aside. He sat in a place of honor, watching a love story he had helped make possible. Afterward, palace life became suffocating. When Meghan felt overwhelmed, she didn't always turn to her husband. She turned to Markus. Late-night calls continued. His presence remained constant. When Harry questioned why Markus was still so involved, Meghan's answer was chilling in its simplicity, because he's the only one who's never left. Then came the sentence that broke everything. Spoken casually, off the record, no cameras, no warning. We've always been close, intimate even after Harry. Once it surfaced, panic followed. Inside the palace, phones buzzed, legal teams mobilized, but it was too late. Harry went silent. He replayed everything, the messages, the lunches, the photos from Toronto where Markus was always there. That night, Harry didn't sleep. By morning, he was gone. And the question that haunted everyone remained unanswered. Was it loyalty, control, or a truth buried for too long? Sometimes all it takes is one sentence to bring an illusion down. The silence that followed didn't heal anything. It only made the cracks louder. Inside that quiet retreat where Harry had gone to think, the kind of place designed to calm the mind, nothing felt calm at all. Every memory replayed itself without mercy. Conversations he had brushed off, moments he had ignored because trusting felt easier than questioning. He began to realize how often Markus's presence had been explained away, normalized, excused. He's always been there. That sentence echoed now with a weight it never had before. Back in Meghan's world, things were unraveling just as quietly. She carried herself the same way in public, controlled, polished, composed, but those closest to her noticed the change. Her phone stayed face down more often. Conversations were shorter. The circle around her tightened. Trust, once given freely, now came with conditions. Markus was no longer openly visible, yet his absence felt louder than his presence ever had. When someone becomes part of your foundation, removing them doesn't restore balance. It destabilizes everything. Inside royal corridors, fear had nothing to do with romance. It was about exposure. Advisors weren't asking whether the sentence was true. They were asking what else Markus knew. He had been there before titles, before protocols, before handlers controlled every word. He had seen Meghan when she was becoming, not performing, and that made him dangerous. NDAs were revisited. Old conversations were scrutinized. Every shared moment was re-examined for risk. Because if one sentence could do this, another could do far worse. Harry returned eventually, but something fundamental had shifted. Distance had moved from physical to emotional. The conversations felt guarded now, careful in a way they never had before. The easy intimacy was replaced by analysis. Who had known what and when? What had been shared? What had been withheld? Marriage is supposed to be a place where nothing competes. But suddenly, there was a third presence in every room, even when Markus wasn't there. Arguments followed, not explosive at first, but sharp and precise. Questions framed as concerns. Concerns framed as jokes. Jokes that landed like accusations. Meghan defended Markus instinctively, not loudly, but firmly. She spoke of loyalty, of history, of someone who had believed in her before anyone else did. Harry heard something else. He heard permanence. And permanence is terrifying when it doesn't include you. Publicly, the narrative stayed intact. Smiles returned on cue. Appearances were managed. Statements were crafted. But privately, something irreversible had happened. The illusion of a clean beginning was gone. What remained was the unsettling realization that some relationships don't end when new ones begin. They simply learn how to hide better. Markus, for his part, remained silent. No corrections, no clarifications, no denial. That silence became its own statement. People who knew him understood that if he wanted attention, he would have taken it. The fact that he didn't only deepen the mystery. Was it restraint? Was it calculation? Or was it the confidence of someone who knew the truth didn't need defending? Meghan rarely spoke his name now. When she did, it was brief, factual, controlled. But control doesn't erase history, and history doesn't vanish just because it becomes inconvenient. For years, Markus had been her constant, the one who saw her before the world decided who she was supposed to be. That kind of bond doesn't dissolve cleanly. It lingers. It reshapes. It leaves echoes. Harry struggled most with what he couldn't define. There was no clear betrayal he could point to. No moment he could hold up and say, "This is where it crossed the line." It was subtler than that. It was the feeling of arriving late to a story that had already been written, of loving someone whose emotional blueprint had been shaped elsewhere. And once that thought takes root, it doesn't let go. The world moved on, as it always does. New headlines replaced old ones. Attention shifted. But inside the marriage, that sentence never lost its power. "We've always been close." It turned every past moment into a question mark. Every smile into something that needed interpreting. And that kind of doubt is corrosive. It doesn't explode, it erodes. What this exposed wasn't just scandal. It was something deeply human. The truth that some connections are built so early, so deeply, that they don't disappear when circumstances change. Titles don't erase them. Weddings don't replace them. And sometimes, the most dangerous relationships aren't the ones everyone can see. They're the ones that feel too foundational to ever be questioned. In the end, no one ever confirmed what intimacy truly meant. Physical or emotional, present or remembered. Maybe that ambiguity was the point, because what lingered wasn't proof, it was unease. The understanding that behind even the most carefully staged lives, there are loyalties that don't obey rules. And sometimes, all it takes is one unguarded sentence to remind the world that not every fairy tale begins where we think it does, and not every chapter truly ends when the next one starts.